Good morning, students. Happy to be with you today, A Pushers. It's Monday, March 23rd. So, before we get started with today, rather than sending this out in an email, I think I'm going to kind of give it to you through this video. So, some news came out from AP Board on Friday about the test. A few things. First of all, the test is not going to be mandatory, not mandatory, but if you've already registered for the test and you do not think that you want to take it, the College Board will refund your money now without a penalty, which is a big deal because they've never done that before. However, I still urge you to take the test if you've signed up. A couple things about it now. There is going to be a difference to it. There will not be any multiple choice. It will only be a writing test of 45 minutes, which to me means there's no DBQ, but we don't know that yet. The only thing that we do know is they are free response questions. I would assume that's like an SAQ and an LEQ, but this will be done at home. So there it is. If you think you're going to want to stick with it and take the test, I urge you to do it. We know how to write. We've been writing this whole time. If you do SAQs, those you are very familiar with those. LEQs, we're familiar with those. So really thoughtfully consider whether you want to take it if you've already signed up, and then, stick with it. A couple things that I want to say. Luckily for us, and I'm just praising the Lord, thank you, God, the College Board is going to end the content material at period 7. So we just took our period 7 test. This is great. However, periods 8 and 9 are really, really important. So having said that, we have gotten through all of the information that we need to get through to take the test. I am going to continue on with period 8 for a couple different reasons. One, until April 3rd, we don't exactly know what the format of the test is going to be. All we know is it's going to be a FRQ on period, or a free response question of some sort on periods 1 through 7. So for 2 reasons, I'm going to continue on with period 8. One, because until April 3rd, we don't really know what exactly to prepare for. And 2, period 8 is really, really important. Therefore, we need to do things. We need to have grades. We need to continue on. So that's just what we're going to do. Once April 3rd comes around and we know a little bit more, I'm probably going to shift gears and we're going to do more of a review mode. But until then, we're going to get through as much of period 8 as possible because it is crucial and very important. So on Friday, I'd asked you to work on that containment policy packet. And we had talked about George Kennan's long telegram that basically said, we are, the United States is in this with the USSR. There's really not going to be a peaceful way to get along with them, and we better be ready. And what we were worried about is this domino theory, that once one country would fall to communism, others would continue to fall after that. The National Security Report, NSC 68, it was in 1950. It was a report to Truman as kind of the basis for the Cold War policy. Truman signed it when North Korea had the backing of the Soviet Union. Again, because you see that headline there, North Korea Reds declare war, they invade the South by land and sea. Well, the Soviet Union supported that. And so Truman signed this national security report to really focus attention through the military expansion and development, especially of that hydrogen bomb. Now, keep in mind of what happened in 1945 to end the war, end World War II. There was lots of speculation. Did it need to be done? Did Truman need to drop the bombs? Some people say yes, he had to because Japan would not have stopped. You know, they were absolutely in a critical period, but they would have fought until the very last dead soldier. And that could have meant upwards, people said, of 1 million lives on the mainland, 1 million American lives on the mainland of Japan. Anyway, so now the hydrogen bomb is going into rapid development. Now the hydrogen bomb is 1,000 times more powerful, 1,000 more times powerful than the nuclear bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, Oppenheimer, you know, the guy who was really behind the development of the atomic bombs, was very much opposed to this hydrogen bomb because he knew it would only accelerate the arms race. He knew that as we produced this hydrogen bomb, then the USSR and other countries, other communist countries, would just up their game as well. So John F. Dulles, if you've ever been to Washington, D.C. and heard of Dulles Airport, Dulles is named after John Dulles, who was the Secretary of State under Eisenhower. And he talks about this massive retaliation that basically said that they were going to the United States was going to commit to retaliate on a much bigger scale if they were attacked first. It was pretty much a warning to the USSR. Sputnik and the space race, the Soviets were the first to put a man into space, the first to get into space. And this was absolutely a shock to Americans because we couldn't believe that the Russians could do something before we did. And so the space race was on. In fact, lots and lots of funding was put into the space race. If you could control space and satellites, then we felt you had an advantage in this Cold War. So the National Defense Education Act, that again was to promote and pump a lot of money into the space race and the arms race. JFK's flexible response policy. Now, this is weird because it seems like we are jumping all over the place. JFK's flexible response policy was basically saying, well, we maybe don't want to have a massive retaliation policy. And as we talk a little bit more about JFK, we'll talk about kind of the way he, his politics were. So whereas before we had talked about the massive retaliation, now JFK is kind of backing off on that kind of outlook or frame of mind. Truman wanted a limited war in the Korean War, which basically said we want to do as little as possible. And we'll get to the Korean War, the Forgotten War, if you will, here in a little bit. And part of the issue was that it was the Forgotten War is because Truman didn't want to get into we just got out of World War II. We didn't want to go into another full-scale war. The Gulf of Tonkin resolution, this is in 1964. Over on the left there in the top, you can see William McNamara. He was a Secretary of Defense. He's pointing to where the Gulf of Tonkin is. And this is the escalation of the United States forces in Vietnam. A U.S. destroyer is in the Gulf, and this is really amping up United States presence in Vietnam. Now, pay attention to the date. This is 1964. By 1965, we have started or engaged in what's called Operation Rolling Thunder, which was an airstrike operation in North Vietnam. We just pounded North Vietnam thinking we could pound them into submission through our airstrikes because we had definitely an impressive Air Force at this time. The Tet Offensive Happens in 1968. Tet is a Vietnamese holiday, and it was a large-scale Viet Cong offensive against South Vietnam, and especially on U.S. targets. So what I really want today then is to stop right there, and I want you to go to your books on page 912 and 913, and it's called American Voices, The Toll of War. Read those 4 different primary source accounts and then answer the 3 questions that follow. A couple of them are different, more than one part answers, but there's only 3 questions. Read those sources and then answer those questions. Please upload the answers to the assignment tab I have created on PowerSchool. I would like that done by midnight tomorrow, so Tuesday 3/24 by midnight. All right, so have a great day. We'll talk again later.